This is WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice.
Hey, welcome to the show, everyone. If you couldn't tell from the intro, you are now tuned in to another episode of WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. If you ever miss an episode, you can hear all our latest and previous episodes on YouTube. Just look up WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice, or follow us on Facebook. Give us a like. You know, we put a lot of work into our show. We're trying to get the word out there. So if you enjoy our interviews and our solo dolo shows, give us a like on Facebook. Just look up Weekends with Pat Rice. Or just type it up into your Google machine, WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice, and I'm sure you'll find one of our pages. Well, anyways, here we are again. In our dark home studio, no lights on, maybe one light on in the background. It's dark. The only thing really shining bright is the computer screen. I got a microphone in front of me. I'm locked in. I'm in my zone. I am strictly focused on what I am doing right now, and that is recording my show. Does it sound kind of familiar for those who are in the depths of video game land? Now, for all you parents out there, even young adults, kids, envision this. You're in your bedroom. The shades are down. No lights are on. Your computer or TV screen is lit up. You hear all different kind of sounds and music playing in the background. You might even have your headphones in. And you have the game controller in your hands. Your palms are sweaty. They're kind of tight, kind of achy. You've been playing for about a half hour. Or maybe a couple hours. Time just seemed to slip by and you didn't even realize it. Your eyes are tired, but you can't stop playing. You're about to beat the hardest level of the game. You worked months to get there. You put in plenty of effort, time, hours, minutes, seconds, whatever you want to call it. You invested yourself into this form of home entertainment where you don't necessarily need a second player sitting right next to you to play with. You can play with people all over the world through the internet. Video games have become so sophisticated, complicated, strategic, creative, explosive. You name it. Video games have become like one big Hollywood production. The commercials and trailers for these video games are like a Spielberg film. Sometimes they can last 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It's like you're not sure if this is a commercial for a movie or a video game. The characters have long history and in-depth details about them and their fantasy world. It creates one big community that gamers all around the universe can connect and relate to in some shape or form. And as time progresses and the video game community just gets bigger and bigger and more financially wealthy and supportive, gamers from all over can go to these major events where there are sponsors and professional video gamers perfecting these games right in front of you. So amateur are on their way to be professional video gamers. Go and watch other people play video games on a big screen. Forget the movies. Who goes to the movies anymore? Let's just go to this event and watch some guy play a video game and beat some incredibly hard level with no effort at all. And I'm not knocking anyone. Believe it or not, that takes some kind of strategic talent. Me, I'm far from a professional gamer. To be honest, I suck at video games. I am a complete amateur. I'm a wannabe. The type of games that I enjoy aren't first-person shooters. They're the classic arcade games. The classic Sega Genesis Sonic the Hedgehog games. They're fun. I run around in loops and I collect coins. And I need to beat a level under 10 minutes. And I jump on these little robotic creatures and they pop into smoke or whatever. But now there's a different generation of gamers out there. Yeah, there are still adventure games out there, and there's plenty of fans for those type of genres. But a lot of video games incorporate the first shooter theme, where the player firsthand walks around, discovers all different kind of terrains and worlds that the video game has to offer, with all different various weapons in the palm of their hands, whether it's a machine gun, a shotgun, a pistol, to a rocket launcher, to maybe some kind of laser gun. Video games today, and for a while now, have no problem not holding back the intense graphics, explosions, and violence and shooting that comes along with it. And the bottom line to many of these games is to be the last one standing, the numero uno, big time winner, to kill all your enemies or whoever you're playing against. The video game industry has become an unbelievable conglomerate industry. Unbelievable money making is involved. Over 155 million Americans play video games, and over 80% of households in America own a video game console. Let's get into some of the history about video games, and let's pick your brain about, do video games inspire, influence violence within our youth, our society in general? Well, some people say yes and some people say no. But let's get started where it all began. In the early 1950s is when computer scientists began to fiddle around with graphics and creating short little games, which eventually became arcade games. Video games didn't begin to get mainstream popularity until the 1970s and the 1980s, which was the arcade game era. Consoles began using joysticks and more intense graphics as video games progressed later on into the late 70s, 80s, and 90s. The golden age for video game is considered to be from 1978 to 1982, and that includes the classic video game Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Miss Pac-Man. And then in the 1990s came along, we were introduced to the first-person shooters, 3D graphics, and Sega Genesis is famous for starting off the 3D graphics with games like Sonic 3D. In the 1990s, video games also brought us real-time strategy, and arcade games began to decline. And in place of going to the arcade and paying 25 cents to play a quick game of Pac-Man or some pinball, people could now purchase their own individual and personal game console and bring it home. Plug it into the TV, just a couple wires real quick, and boom! You could play whatever game you wanted for hours on end, not having to put 25 cents into the machine every single time you wanted to play. You already paid your couple $100 to have the console and the game, so now gaming is available to you around the clock. And sure, that's great. A couple less trips to the mall to play your favorite game at the arcade. Now you own it. You can play it the moment you wake up, the moment you get home from school or work, all weekend, all vacation, whatever you want to do. And this has been the norm in our society for a couple of decades now. But what are the signs of video game addiction? They say long periods of non-stop playing. But what is considered long periods of non-stop playing? Come on, we need some precise guidelines here. Well, they say over an hour and a half of continuous gaming is considered compulsive video gaming if you do it on a daily basis. And if you're playing to escape depression, anxiety, or life problems, let's say life isn't being that easy for you. You're going through a difficult time. Are you running away from your problems by turning on the game console, talking to people you don't even know through the internet because you're just bonding over some most likely a violent shooter game? That's not real life. You can't shoot away your problems. And if you do, you're going to jail. Another sign of video game addiction is when an individual gets angry over the game constantly. It's not every once in a while you get irritated because you almost won that level you just played 10 times in a row. I mean, if you're playing it 10 times in a row, that's kind of compulsive to me. But you've just been trying to beat that level, the final boss, but if you're getting so ticked off, you're throwing the controller on the ground, you're throwing it at the TV, you're breaking things, you're yelling at people. Mom's like, what's going on? And you're just telling Mom to shut up. Shut up, Mom! I need to beat this game. There's something wrong there. You're out of control. You need to sit down. You need to take a break. Get some fresh air. I mean, what happened to going outside and kicking a ball around? I mean, God forbid. I drive by the neighborhood park and I'm lucky to see 2 kids out there. I mean, if there's 2 kids out there, I hate to say it, they're usually not shooting a basketball. They're probably shooting something else. I'm sorry, though. I'm just saying how it is. Call it how I see it. There was actually a time when I was a kid and I was over at a friend's house and we were playing Tony Hawk, which is a skateboarding video game. And I was just kicking butt. And my buddy, he wasn't doing that well in it. Kept on messing up on the tricks. He could only do like a kick flip, which is like the simplest trick in the whole game. And he ended up losing it. We were like in middle school. He was so angry. He took the controller. He slammed it down on the ground. Boom! He's yelling, "You stupid beep! Beep!" Just picture the bleep sound effect going crazy in your head right now. He's yelling. He's on the verge of tears. His mom literally came upstairs and she was like, "I'm sorry, Patrick, but you have to leave. So-and-so isn't behaving right now." And it was so awkward because I was a bit, I don't want to say scared, but thrown off guard with the way my buddy was acting. And I was like, wow, he's really ticked off right now. So I just kept shut and just kind of continue to play, but kind of slowed down to not playing. I was just moving the joystick around, just watching it all go down like, "Please, someone save me." And then his mom came in and told me I had to be excused because of her son's behavior. And I didn't know if I should have laughed or thanked her, but I was like, "All right, thank you, have a good night." And I left. And I was just so happy to be home, and I told my parents, I was like, "You guys aren't gonna believe how my buddy was acting. He was like crying over Tony Hawk." If my buddy found out that I told this story on the air and it was about him, it'd probably, I don't even know, it'd probably be like, "What the heck, man?" But anyways, video games are supposed to be enjoyable. Why get your blood pressure high over a video game? When it gets to that point where you're not having fun anymore, that's when you should stop. But it's easier said than done. That's like a drug addict being like, "Well, you know, it used to be fun to get high, but now it's not fun to get high anymore." But at the end of the day, when someone's addicted to something, they truly have a hard time stopping. And that's kind of what it's like with video game addiction. And some people don't think video game addiction is even a thing. But I personally believe that you can get addicted to anything. You can get addicted to anything in this world. It's something as simple as like having OCD. You're addicted to brushing your teeth after every single meal that you have. You're addicted to doing something in a certain way. Some people might say it's a routine or a habit. What's the next step to that? Addiction. Researchers have compared compulsive video gaming to compulsive gambling, which is, I can see the connection very well. You're both playing a game, and both of the games consume of your time, thought process, and you wanting to get to the next level. Okay, for video games, you want to beat the level that you're on, you want to beat the next level, you eventually want to beat the game. With gambling, you want to win a certain amount of money, then you want to surpass that amount of money. You want to win as much as you can. At the end of the day, the bottom line is all about winning. Another sign of video game addiction is being irritable and rebellious when forced to cut down on time. Your parents or your peers are like, "Hey, Joe, maybe you should slow down on the video game playing. I mean, I called your cell phone like 10 times today. You didn't pick up because you were locked in your bedroom playing video games with all the lights off. This is like some weird, creepy cult thing, man. You got candles lit, no shoes on. I have no clue what the heck is going on. But maybe you should step outside into the real world and realize that it's sunny out right now. You know, it's daytime, not nighttime. Because when I step into your bedroom, it just seems like a eternal pit of darkness. You might want to rethink things over. And when someone has a problem and they're told to cut down on it, like someone that's trying to quit smoking. Okay, I'm only going to have 2 cigarettes today. One on my lunch break and one after dinner. Compare it to like video games. Okay, I'll play one video game right after I get home from school. Then after I do my homework and after dinner, I'll play another video game and then I'll go to bed. Trying to follow a certain guideline to cut something down, especially when it's enforced probably from someone else, your parents are only like, okay Joe, you need to get your homework done first and then you can play video games. It can make the individual that's in that position very irritable, frustrated. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to do what they want to do. They want to satisfy that urge of enjoyment that they receive, whether it's playing video games or smoking a stogie. Another sign of video game addiction is a sign that you would also see for people who are struggling through drug addiction, and that's loss of interest in their regular, fun, happy activities. Let's say you enjoyed playing sports, going out with friends, maybe playing cards, writing, maybe creating music. But now, all you want to do is play video games. You don't care about any of that. I don't care if I see Mike today. I don't really care to go to soccer practice today. I don't really care to partake in the card game club or the chess club I was a part of. I think I just want to play video games. That's what I really want to do right now. And for parents who might suspect that their children or peers or loved ones might be going through video game addiction, you can take track of your child's use by taking note of when and how long your child plays. The World Health Organization has just announced that video game addiction is considered a mental health disorder. Research has shown that the brain reacts to video games the same way it would do to the drug cocaine. It lights up the brain, it releases these endorphins, it gets your senses going wild, it gets your senses tingling like Spider-Man. But does video games lead to violence? But does video games also lead to one's ability to focus and improve their visual abilities, strengthening their brain functions? Researchers on both sides will tell you yes and no. I can see how video games might strengthen someone's brain function or ability to focus because a lot of these games are pretty strategic. It's not just like the old arcade games where you just go one or two ways and you make it to the finish line or you make it to the end of the level. A lot of these games today, you need to discover the map that you're venturing through. You need to know the certain tactics and ways on how to get through the level, on how to defeat enemies. You gotta be quick on your toes. Things pop out in front of you. It's very spontaneous and wild at times. And that can conclude to why some people get so hyped up when they play video games. Some studies link to video games to slight increases in aggression, though aggression's not the same compared to violence. But do I think video games can inspire or influence violence? Absolutely. I do not think it's healthy for a young mind, or any mind, I don't care if you're 60 years old, to be playing violent video games. If you're constantly playing games that involve guns, explosions, killing people, whether it's good guy or bad guy, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, violence is violence. If you're constantly recycling your mind and your eyes to seeing graphic visual violence of blood and nudity, it can cause some detrimental damage to a young mind, even a mind that knows better. Though two psychology professors, Patrick Markey and Christopher Ferguson, say that 20% of school shooters played violent video games, compared close to 70% of their non-violent peers. In a 2004 report on school shooters by U.S. Secret Service and Department of Education say 12% of school shooters had an interest in violent video games. Another study says that youth violence declined since more violent games have become available. A Boston University study says rates dropped 29% from 2002 to 2014. Then we got characters like the Sandy Hook shooter Adam Lanza, who supposedly frequent an arcade in his town to play video games 8 to 10 hours a night at a local cinema. And some of his favorite games were Call of Duty, Dead or Alive, Grand Theft Auto, all in his collection. And if you want to continue the conversation between video games and school shootings, Back in 1997, Jack Thompson filed the first ever video game lawsuit. It was filed on behalf of the parents of 3 children killed in the Heath High School shooting. The shooter supposedly played violent video games such as Resident Evil and viewed porn sites. Okay, so now we have this young man who's isolating himself to play violent video games, most likely in his dark bedroom or mom's and dad's basement, and he's viewing porn sites on the regular. Now, porn, a completely different topic to what we're talking about, but adult entertainment is a complete disregard to other human life. It's very shallow, it's lustful, it's dirty, it's perverted, and it honestly shows no respect towards the other person or party involved of the production. And disgustingly, some porn productions feature violent and aggressive behavior and acts, whether it's towards a woman or a man. And so, if you have a young mind watching that kind of material, you can only imagine the type of corruption that it can influence onto them. It doesn't even have to be a young person. It can be a person that has a weak mind. Even people who have been strong-minded have been dragged into that dark world of being manipulated by these false fantasies and sickening entertainment. And what you need to realize is that is exactly what it is. Whether you like it or have a distaste for it, it's entertainment. Though the funny thing about human nature is once we observe something or see some kind of action done by a person in power or someone influential to us, we may later down the road, when we get into a similar scenario, use the same kind of action and behavior as the person who was influential did during that same scenario. Albert Bandura, a Stanford University psychologist, concluded that, in quotes, watching unchecked aggression in real life, on film, or in cartoon makes us more aggressive because it provides us with social scripts to our behavior. And to break it down nice and simple, basically the experiment that Albert Bandura did back in the 60s was that he took a group of kids and the kids observed how adults played with toys. And they would have an adult that would play violently with certain toys. And once the kids observed that, they took the kids into a different room and let the kids choose what toys they wanted to play with. And the kids went to go play with the toys that the violent adult was playing with and imitated the same type of behavior. And that led to Bandura's conclusion that watching unchecked aggression in real life, on film or in cartoon, makes us more aggressive because it provides us with social scripts to our behavior. So it's like, hey, I saw that in a movie or on TV once. I saw my dad or my mom or my uncle or my brother act that way. So, you know what? It's okay to act that way. It's alright. They're influential to me. You know, they're my mom, they're my dad, that's my brother, that's my uncle. They acted that way, so I mean, I guess that's the way to act. Like they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But the unanswered question to this whole debate is, do video games cause or influence violence within our society? Some say that video games could improve problem-solving capacity. As an example, players of World of Warcraft had improved problem-solving capacity, though researchers weren't sure if the game attracted those kind of individuals to the games in the first place, people who are already good at problem-solving. They enjoyed the game because they were already good at problem-solving. That is just one of their nicks. And other researchers said that virtual reality gaming can help people recover from PTSD, get over phobia, learn to manage drug addiction, because it involves real failing scenarios in which people can face their fears. With the support of a therapist, it can be therapeutic. So this is like new level psychology stuff, and it needs so much more research done. Remember though, The World Health Organization has recently announced that video game addiction is considered a mental health disorder. 65% of households have at least one family member who plays video games for 3 hours or more a week. The average gamer is 35 years old. More adult women play video games compared to boys under 18, though 59% grown-up males and 41% grown-up females play video games within America. Research has shown that kids who spend more than 1.5 hours in front of a screen playing video games are likely to be obese, and past history has shown that previous school shooters, such as Adam Lanza and the Heath High School shooter, both played violent video games and sometimes viewed pornographic material. What do you think? How do you feel about it? Do you think that video games influence violence within our society? Do you think that video game addiction is a mental health disorder? Do you think people try to escape their problems through video games? Are video games like a drug? Feel free to reach out to me and I'll read all of your emails at wcrnpat@gmail.com. Let me know what you think about this topic. Let me know what you think about the show. And until next time, remember that video games, movies, music, it's all entertainment. It's all fantasy, even if it's based on a real story. It's all to amuse us, to pass time. It's something that we all should enjoy and not take too seriously. Because if we do, someone seriously might get hurt. This has been another episode of WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830.
This has been WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.